I have Nikki, the awesome person behind the Nocturnal Narrator, and which I really
Thanks.
follow for a while now. And honestly, we hit it off pretty well, and
Yeah,
we
good.
are in the same genre. We choose speculative fiction. I'll get to that a little later. But yeah, just to get the ball rolling, tell us a bit about you. I've read up your about page on
Yeah.
Substack, but yeah, just want to hear straight from you.
Okay, well, so I don't even know where to start, but I will say that I have not been a, I guess I've been a content creator in the sense of when I worked for myself and I ran my own business, which was actually in personal training. I did all of the content and stuff myself and all the promo and marketing. So that translated very poorly actually to other like content. And so I started putting my writing out there. Probably it's been, I would say it's been close to a year now. I started on Substack in February,
Mm.
and yeah, I write a lot of dark fiction, obviously, some serial stuff, and as well as like short pieces. I think that's really
Mm.
it.
All right. So, I mean, how did you start? Like, did you? I mean, obviously, it's coincidental. Like, eventually, you transformed into like I guess what you really want to do. But early on, years back when you were a bit younger, did you ever thought, because career wise, it's not really very straightforward. Being working online, doing content online specifically is not really a
Yeah.
natural ambition. I guess a goal.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah,
Right.
at least it wasn't for, like now the younger people are growing up and like content creator is a very valid
Right.
like strategy or something to shoot for. But um, yeah, wow. Sorry, could you repeat that question for me?
I mean, if it's really something that you've thought about years back when you were a bit younger,
Yeah, no, not even at all. In fact, I have this like I joke about having like a fear of being perceived,
mm.
and I do, but it's yeah, definitely not something that I would have ever considered doing.
But yeah, beyond Substack, like how did you like explore this platform? It's still fairly new, but
Ooh,
how
yes.
how did you find it, and just decided to, oh, I'll just start something here online.
It's actually kind of funny. So I am, you might not believe me, but I am incredibly shy. I'm incredibly like hyper independent. And so I had started putting my writing out on just a blog, like a regular blog. I can't even remember like the name. And I was putting out some stuff that I really had like an emotional connection to. I really was proud of that work,
Mm-hmm.
and I could not figure out like why it was not getting views or what I was doing wrong. And so I started looking more into how to optimize on that platform, which led me to Substack because their SEO is great, by the way. But when you're looking up like, what am I doing wrong? Like, how can you make this easier? Substack pops up. Substack has got
Mm.
everything, whether it's an article that like somebody else wrote or it is a Substack article itself. So that's kind of how I fell in. And then figuring out was a pretty miserable process until I allowed myself to accept help and criticism and to realize that like being hyper independent is actually just as detrimental as being like hyper dependent. So,
Mm.
but once I kind of, really allowed that sense of community and I took the criticism and all of the everything that, people are always trying to give help. You just have to be ready to take it. And then I think that's when I started figuring out like really in depth for the SEO and how to do categories, how to set up your homepage, things like UX, so the user experience when they click on your links, things like those matter a lot, and I would have never known.
Mm.
So that's how I kind of found my way. I stumbled and fell, and I will make this joke until the day I die. Outside, I'm a woman, but inside, I
Hi.
am. I'm a middle-aged father of three who I would rather break something, whether it's my own ego or a table, before I
Right.
read the instructions. So,
And that's really how you learn. I mean, honestly, for me, when I was starting out, I was looking at a lot of the subsects, including yours, like how you guys do it, and it's really how you learn when you
Yes.
test stuff out and see, okay, that's really not for
Yeah, because I
me.
feel like everybody, like if we had the answers readily available, and this is one of my like, we'll get to AI and stuff later, but when you have the answer so readily available, you lose that ability to filter out like things that just aren't for you. Some
Right.
things are not for you, and it is okay if you aren't ready to have a niche or you're not ready to like serialize content or anything like that. Like, and you're reading things that you think like this is the only way to do it.
Yeah, I get what you mean. And is it? I mean, is it safe to say that you had like really shaky start? It's on Substack because it really felt that way for me.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it felt like yeah, that I was doing everything wrong. That in and I will say that the Substack itself is so it's it's kicking off. They're gonna make they make changes pretty frequently. So even when we say, oh, here are tips for how to use notes, who knows if that tip is gonna work 2 weeks from now because their algorithm might change or what they prioritize might change. And so you really have to pay attention to the platform that you're on, like how they advertise, who they speak to, who they, and kind of work around it. But
Yeah.
it definitely felt like a mess when I first started.
Totally. And I mean, okay, let's talk about your genre. I mean, our genre. Uh, what made you decide to, is it something that you read a lot as a child, as a
Honestly,
teenager?
honestly, so I really found myself for the longest time kind of focusing on science fiction and dystopian fiction where my main focus is. But I got into speculative fiction because I like things that feel grounded and kind of feel real, but they're just out of reach.
Mm.
And since speculative fiction is kind of that umbrella term, I would say that I stuck more with sci-fi and dystopian, and that's where I tend to find like easy writing comes from. But yeah, speculative fiction itself, when I learned what it was, I actually didn't even really learn. I didn't know what speculative fiction was until gosh, a few years ago, maybe.
Hmm.
So when I found out that that is like an umbrella genre, that you can have things that are science fiction, but also,
Yes, yeah.
I fell hard. It's my ADHD brain. Yeah, I fell hard.
It said something that for me, this is also a personal matter, but I doom scrolling has probably helped me with research, honestly.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Because it's relative to what's happening.
yeah,
If you write about speculative fiction, you're always going to be getting
yeah.
information from news, like the dark news, the the bad
Oh
news.
yeah,
Unfortunately,
I actually I started that series Project X, and it actually started out, the title of it started as the X, formerly known as Twitter files. And it is
right?
basically taking headlines and turning them into dystopian fiction.
Oh, that's
So
so cool.
there, for example, with let's say Neuralink and Elon's kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
I did a whole fictional. I'm gonna let you in on something.
Yeah.
All of my like main antagonists for Project X are all based loosely on real people that like we see in the news.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Chicks.
I would say that it's like speculative fiction is really good right now.
Right? Yeah. And I totally agree. It's so eerie that it's very close to fiction nowadays. You know what's happening in real life.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I
It's
can't tell you how many times I've seen an article and I'm like, is that The Onion or is that like, no?
no, yeah, yeah. And it's funny because speculative fiction as a genre is, yeah, like you said, it's a very big one. It's also like historical fiction, like what could have,
Yeah.
it's a bit like that. And we could only imagine how it's going to be so close to, there's auto fiction nowadays where they combine real stories and just kind of
Oh,
like twist it, but
wow.
yeah. So I wonder if it's just going to merge eventually to that genre. honestly.
That's actually very interesting.
Yeah, but okay. So how did you manage? Sorry, how did you manage dark stories and dark themes? Is it something that you're okay like dealing with? Because it
Yeah,
could get very very depressing if you write about it a lot.
yeah, it is. So that is a very, very good question. I think that there is no such thing as like too dark in fiction, especially speculative, because a lot of that is inspired from the real world, and the real world is dark. The only thing, what I will say is that there's no such thing as too dark for my preference, but I do recognize and I'm very, very aware that my preference isn't everybody's preference.
Hmm.
So the key for me in that is just informed consent. I think informed consent is important for every single thing. So giving somebody a heads up to, hey, when you read this, you're going to come in contact with this kind of like emotional thing or this kind of violence or this, because somebody else should be able to read that and be like, oh, I've had enough of violence against women for one day. I'm going to put that down. I'll come back later. So I think that's really the
That's
best way
a
to do it.
very good advice. It's something that probably wasn't a thing before. Like nobody would.
Yeah.
It's probably one of those plot twists that they never really
Yeah,
cared about.
absolutely.
But now, yeah, it's very important to include that as a heads up for people, for
Especially
writers.
because in dark fiction and horror, what I will say is that women are there's so much more victimization, brutalization, sexualization of everything
Yeah.
about women in horror and dark fiction. And so not only is nobody like getting blindsided by that, I think that we as women have had quite enough of it. And so if it does come up in a scene or a chapter or whatever, I think that it is super, super important, especially in those areas, to let your female readers know, hey, like this is going to be a thing so they don't get blindsided, because I can't tell you how many times I've loved a horror movie or a book or a story, and then out of nowhere you get slapped in the face with like a scene, and it's like
Mm.
that ruined the whole story for me.
Wow, yeah. It tends to happen before, especially sort of the gore you get.
Yeah.
And it's I think also women become more used to it now. It's unfortunate, right?
Yeah.
That yeah, that we are always the subject of victimization. And
Yeah, I never even noticed how bad it was in dark fiction and
mm,
horror until somebody else had pointed it out to me, and I was not only, like you said, that desensitization to it, that numbness where it happens and you kind of just like look away and then you go back
right,
to it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, like just going to that route of writing, how do you deal with loneliness? And it is a very because you have to be focused when you are writing, so it tends to be like a one person job. No one else
Yes,
has to be messing with you unless it's a collaborative effort. But yeah,
absolutely.
how do you handle that?
Exactly. So like you had mentioned collaborative effort, I really love collaborative writing projects. So if I do feel myself kind of wormholing a little bit,
Right.
um, I those collaborative writing projects, I do them on my Substack every month. We all vote on like a theme, a genre, a trope, an archetype, and then we have 2 weeks, so usually 14th or 15th, for people to write their short story or poetry, nonfiction, personal essay, anything that includes every element in some fashion. I mean, I've had people say like, they're holding a photo of this location, and that is the only piece of like detail that they had from the criteria. That's fine. So I think that those projects help kind of pull me out, and I feel very, very strongly about the fact that writing in any career field is only as lonely as you make it. I think we have way, way more control over our lives than a lot of people pretend to, because like
It's true.
pretending that we don't have control over our moods, like loneliness, I think is actually part of the far right wing pipeline. So I'm
Mm.
very, very aware of, if I'm feeling some type of way, I need to be proactive to fix it instead of just letting it sit, because then all of a sudden you're blaming the world for being lonely. You're blaming somebody else that you're lonely. So I'm very aware.
That's good advice, and yeah, I never thought about that. It's you do have control over and if you feel like you're too stressed out, you can just pause. And I feel like it's important also on Substack to, because yeah, we get to a point where, okay, if it's once a week put content, good, can I manage that? And I should, of course, there's level of responsibility
Yeah.
to like stick to your schedule. But if it's really stressful, I mean, why can't you not
Yeah.
pause?
Exactly. I can't. I will say, like, I have had the anxiety of, oh, I have to do this.
Mm,
Um, and it's really hard to find a middle ground or like a gray area where it's between I don't owe anybody anything and I owe everybody everything. And finding that gray area where you can recognize that you owe people your word when you say, I'm going to do something, you are going to do it. But that doesn't mean that a lot of people, when you can't keep to it, they automatically flip the switch. It's black or white. It's okay, well, I don't owe anybody anything. You still owe that word, but you also owe yourself. So an apology or a heads up, or even just a, hey, we're going to, I'm going to take a break, we're going to do this, this, and this, is perfectly fine. That's more than enough. And I think more people need to realize that if you are unable to keep up or you need a break, you don't owe anybody your content, but you just give them a heads up. Say, hey, I'm going to take a break for a little bit, take a step back. I've
mm.
not lost a subscriber to that yet. So,
Yeah, and it just really also applies. I mean, you look at the current workforce situation.
yep.
If you are sick, you can have a day off.
Yeah,
So why can't that apply to content creation,
exactly.
right?
I think that we do some of, like me especially, but some of us do kind of fall into that like starving artist, like suffering
Right.
artist
Yeah.
thing and that mindset. And it is good fuel. It is great fuel, but it is not good for just sedentary, just sitting there and then thinking like, oh, I'm so miserable. Oh, I'm so poor. I'm a victim of that, like, or I'm a perpetrator of that.
Mm.
So it's that it's really just all falls back into like being more mindful and being more aware of like, is there anything I can do for the situation to improve?
Okay, nice. It's give me a lot to think about. But um, what keeps you up at night? It's a very general question, but yeah, I feel like it could be about topics like writing
Yeah.
something, and then you're in a dead end. Like how do you manage that?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what keeps me up at night? I'll start with a simple list I think everybody can resonate with. The IRS, ghosts, politicians, AI, broligarchs, like all of those
Mm,
things. But other than that, I think that my perfectionism is probably the one thing because I'll hit post and then I'm going through and reading it and I'm like, oh, I need to change this and this and this. And then I'll go through and hit preview email. So the font's different, the background's different. And then I go through and make edits. And it's like, at some point, put the pen down and go to sleep.
right. Yeah. So with you on this one, like after you hit publish, you see like all the errors, all of us.
Oh, I'm
There
the
was
best. I'm the best editor after I hit publish. There's no.
it's so true, right? And it's has multiple versions of that note that I see, but
Yeah.
it's just that like you tend to like, yeah, I agree, because yeah,
Yeah.
it's such
And
a bad.
it's a point where I don't even want to acknowledge how true that is.
Yeah, same. But yeah, going to the topic of discipline and routine, because we touched upon this one. How do you, I mean, has it changed how you function in a day? Like, do you have your routine now? Do you, it's more like, okay, feel of the moment. Like, what do you want to write about? Of course, you have your series that you have to
Yeah.
keep updated, which we always
Oh.
look forward to. But yeah, yeah, your routine basically as a content creator.
Okay. So I think that since I set out and decided that this was going to be what I do, my discipline and routine have only changed enough to shift focus. I can't really say that anything else has changed.
Mm.
In my opinion, everything starts with intent. So anything that switching over to writing or content creating for me was just setting the intention and working towards it in little ways. So I don't think anything really major changed, at least for me.
Mm. So I do, yeah. I mean, for me, first few months, first few weeks, I was like trying to figure out, okay, how do you get into this cycle of, but it turned out to be like a bit more natural, surprisingly,
Yeah.
right? So maybe it's because you also like writing, like, it's,
Yeah,
so it comes
absolutely.
with, if it's a chore more than a passion, I think it becomes
Yeah.
more difficult, right?
Yeah, and I think that part of what helps me is that I have so many projects going at one time that for a lot of people can be overwhelming. But for my readers, it tends to be, they tend to like it the same way that I do, in just the sense of having variety or changing a
True.
little change of pace, but having the same kind of voice or narrator or something. And that's actually how I cemented my sort of persona, I guess, is that I don't have one story to tell or one genre of story or one style of story. I have
Mhm.
so many stories. I'm just the narrator, like I, so
That's
that's
a very good way to put it, and yeah, it makes you more flexible. It
exactly, yeah.
seems, and I mean, it's like, obviously it's not a magazine, but there are different like
Yeah,
sections that you can
exactly.
get into, and depending on where you feel like, okay, I'm gonna focus a bit more on this one.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's also the transition of when with Substack. At first, I was thinking, okay, I'm just gonna do nonfiction, like essays and things like that. But
Hmm.
and then eventually, I'll probably like release. It was the
Yeah.
whole intention, honestly, to be releasing a book at some point with fiction. But
Yeah.
why not try series, right? And that was really my.
Yeah, of
I
course.
stumbled upon that decision by accident. Um, is that
I
something
love
that
that.
is that something that you thought that it was just like with Olivia, for example, or with Ben, which is also now I don't know if I don't know if you're going to be expanding that into an actual.
I am.
Awesome, eh? Good for us. Yeah, but
Exactly.
is it some like the sections or the themes, are these things that just you decided on a whim, or was it more strategic about how you know is there
It
a big
is,
world behind this, is what I'm asking.
there is such a big world. So, I, this is go I'm gonna keep it short for you,
Sure, sure.
but I have a very creative imagination and I love world building. There's
Mm.
been so many times where I have helped my friends world build and not do any writing because that's just something that I love to do. Kind of like
So fun.
yeah, like with Dungeons and Dragons or things like that where you just get to play around with, especially in speculative fiction, I get to use the base of the world that we live in, but I can change any details. And I love that. So the way that I like to see it as all of my stories are happening in the same universe of the void. There's no real kind of setting, I guess, but the void encompasses all. The void does not bend to physics, physics bends to the void, sort of thing. But to me, it's like all of these things are happening. They could be happening at once, whatever order you read them in. Who knows? Time is soup, sort of thing.
I love it. I
But
mean,
yeah, I was saying,
yeah.
sorry, I forgot to answer your actual question. Most things I do on, I won't say on a whim. I do believe in filtering ideas and stuff. So I'll jot down like, how much do I have for this idea? Is it worth it?
Mm.
Um, but one project that I have not done on a whim at all is my Somnus series. With the prologue and the introduction are the only parts that I have up on my Substack. But that has been in the works for so long. So, but that's about the only thing that I don't really do on a whim.
Mm. Ah, okay. So there will be something in the works right now, but in the future you'll be releasing something a bit more, like something that
Yes.
you've worked on for a while.
Yeah, so the right now with the Somnus series spans I don't know if you are familiar with or a fan of like Warhammer 40K, But the way that that kind of spans across like civilizations and things like that, the Somnus series spans over roughly as it sits right now, like 75,000 years. The manuscript itself is at 122,000 words. Like it's
Wow,
very in depth science fiction. You've got your different cults and your different,
I love it.
it's like science fiction fantasy kind of, but it starts very speculative, very grounded in reality. It starts with
Mm,
just something similar to Neuralink, where you get an implant and um,
I love that.
so we all kind of notice how things like history is very easily erased. So
Mm,
with the way that Somna series starts is that they figure out a way to preserve memories using an implant in the brain, so they can perfectly preserve crystal clear memories with feelings and emotions still attached, and that way. The person, like, we can see history how it happened and not just how, the winner wrote it. Well, obviously, when that gets in the hands of big money and tech corporations, it gets screwed.
yes,
So,
as most breakthrough technology always does.
of course,
But yeah, okay. On the topic of writer's block, do you believe in that?
I do. I do believe in writer's block, but my advice for writer's block sounds like I don't believe it, because I think that the advice is just right. That it sounds insane. I don't care if it's a grocery list. I don't care if it's a note to your mom or a journal entry about what you did. Just keep writing. In my head, people argue all day about the right or the wrong way.
Mhm.
But if you don't put criteria on it and you don't put a word count and you don't like, you could just toss this in the trash later. Nobody really, I think that some of the best things pour out in those moments. Now, you're not going to use all of it. In fact, you probably won't use 90% of it. But for me, I find myself like, I'll pour something on the paper and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have the next scene.
Yeah,
That's just,
by
yeah.
accident,
But
right? Sometimes.
exactly, yeah.
And I always think about that when I like, okay, this has led me to this one, so it's not like a waste of time.
Yeah, exactly.
May not be like the perfect prose, but eventually it will lead you to like more ideas and things like that. And I feel like it's still progress in the end.
Absolutely. And even if you end up, because like for me, I end up scrapping so much of my work because my process is so chaotic that when I'm in a zone, there will be so many times that I'm only writing dialogue or I'm writing from a weird narrator second person, like, and then Ben does this and Olivia does this, and then I go back through it and I actually, write it out, but I have scrapped whole entire chapters, and that's okay. I think, like you said, it's progress. I now know my characters wouldn't do this or they will do this or.
Wow. And I mean, okay, we're gonna go towards just the more general life stuff. There is the persona of the nocturnal narrator online, but how do you manage to um, separate what is Nikki and with the pets, with the cat and the dog,
Yeah.
and yeah, just being someone that we connect with
Ooh, I'm
online.
gonna be really honest with you. They're not very separate at all. I am when I type out notes, that's just an unfiltered, like straight stream of consciousness from my brain where sometimes it'll make no sense, sometimes it bounces all over the place, but I don't keep much separate. I will say that as far as like my family goes, I keep that stuff offline for the most
Mm,
part, especially just being a woman on the internet. Um,
true.
but everything else is pretty pretty spot
Pretty spot
on.
on.
I have a
Yeah, that's good.
chaotic ADHD brain, like squirrel goldfish.
Okay, so inspiration wise, what has been like? I mean, obviously, there's reading the news is probably the easiest one. But is there something like I like the fact that you research heavily on like things that becomes very central in when you, for example, with Olivia, your series. So how do you manage with inspiration when you read headlines? Do you stumble upon these things? Like, on a daily basis?
So yeah, so I think before I really started publishing primarily fiction, I actually did have a very similar start where you did, where I was originally planning to just do like personal essays or things like that,
Mhm.
and just put a little bit of my fiction on the side, like, oh, this,
Correct.
this is kind
Yeah.
of similar to a headline. Um, I think that originally my inspiration came from day to day interactions I have with people, headlines, etc. But there had gotten a point for me where I'd gotten overinformed, and I think that that is something that a lot of people don't talk about enough. Where I was so informed on foreign policy, foreign politics, when their elections were, what their elections were for, that every crisis, every conflict, every anything overseas, I'm on it. I'm up until 3, 4 in the morning, and it got to that point. I'm like, I need to take a step back, not only from the headlines, but also from writing about the headlines, and focus on something that's more character focused and
Right.
person driven. And for me, I've always been very big into psychology and very big into um I can't say very big into manipulation. That sounds bad, but like it's just
I get what you
it's an art
mean.
form.
It is. Yeah.
So the research in that, and my biggest, I would say, if there was like one core theme to my work, is challenging perspective. I really like to challenge perspective. So when I'm thinking character driven, character focused, I'm thinking what are major misconceptions, or what are major like theories that people think that they know, or things like that, that I can not tell them they're wrong, but show them and prove that they're wrong. And with Olivia, it was very much about being diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. And a lot of people don't know that like psychopaths and sociopaths typically are, they have the same diagnosis, but there are only minor differences. And a lot of people don't understand, like they know what cognitive empathy is because they use it, but they don't know that even though a psychopath, or whatever societal label you want to use, might not feel emotions the same way that you do, they have the ability to feel. And especially with like sociopaths, and I could have this mixed up, but
Sure.
the major difference between the two is that one is more prone to like chaotic and reckless outbursts, and the other is more controlled and things like that. So yeah, I
Yes.
would say that my inspiration just comes from taking people's perspective and twisting it to knots and stomping on it.
Like basically breaking the stereotypes of what's like available
Yeah,
in like in books. 'Cause, yeah,
absolutely.
we've always been posed as okay, women as an example, they're
Hmm.
the damsel in distress, right? But
Yep.
yeah, it could
Oh
be
yeah.
the other way around.
Exactly. And I'm like, I'm watching Dexter and you and everything. I'm like, why, God forbid a
Yeah,
woman have a hobby? Like,
that is so true. I never. Oh yeah, Dexter is a very good example of like it could have been a woman.
exactly, exactly. I'm like, man, we should have more murderous women. That's what the world really needs. And I wish I were being funny.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so about success and failure, like of course it's a big topic, but just distilling it down to for writers, what defines it for you?
I think that the only thing, in my opinion, that defines failure is, is going to sound cheesy, but it's when you give up. There are so many opportunities, and there are very few things that you can only do once. And I think that you only fail if you tell yourself, I've failed, and move on.
When you don't when you stop pursuing it, basically, if and it's if something that you like and you love.
You have to be the one to declare that you failed. Nobody else can tell you you failed at this. You have to first give up. So,
And okay, this is we're towards the end, but so far it's been very
It's
enlightening
been
and very
it's been
educational.
very nice.
I love talking to people, and it's in general content creators. I think they're that side, and that's pretty much why I decided. Sorry, why I decided to uh, build this podcast, if I may say that, and just to really connect with writers, artists,
And I love that.
and um, just talk about stuff that is what's on their brains right now.
Yeah.
And AI probably is one of those that we cannot avoid. It's been it's been written a lot about on Substack.
Yes.
But yeah, I want to hear your thoughts on this one. I don't know if you've maybe I've missed a post that you made,
I
but
have a very interesting thoughts. I think that capitalist surveillance is a problem. I think that using any public source LLM such as ChatGPT, you're giving away a lot of information that you don't know that you are. And you probably don't know that there's a switch that you have to turn off if you don't want to use your data to train other LLMs.
mm,
Um, but I also used to script LLMs. So I used to work in healthcare where AI has been used for
yes.
years. So I have a very unique relationship with AI. For one, I think that there's no such thing as ethical consumption under capitalism, but there is like you have a duty to ethically create. So I think that until we can figure out the mess with like copyright and everything like that, I think that using AI to write, using AI to generate a picture for your cover, if you are making money off of it, in essence, I don't think you should use AI. That is what leads me to the fact that like that's my preference. That
Mm,
is something that I wouldn't put my money towards, that I personally wouldn't read, but my preference doesn't rule the world. So I think that the two things that matter the absolute most are transparency and oversight policy. Things that um, the way that I've seen it put is we're already at a point where there's so little restriction or so little transparency or things like that with AI. And then on top of just um, the I'm trying to think of the word, environmental impact. There we go. The
yeah.
environmental impact alone is very huge because the AI, big computer get hot.
Yes.
So I have a lot of very open about the fact that I don't really want to entertain AI written comments. I really don't want to read AI generated work. I don't really like looking at AI generated photos if you're like on the cover of a book, but I also am not going to shame that person or call that person out or make a big show of it because again, this is my preference and that's not everybody's preference and I don't my comfortability should never come at the cost of somebody else like making a living.
Yeah, very valid. And yeah, I'm pretty much the same, mindset now. I'm not gonna support, the use and then making profit off of it. But
Yeah.
it's right now there are just so many like there's not a lot of regulation, I guess, because
Yeah, there's not at
even
all.
a lot of the software that we're using right now, they've been getting our data for
Yeah.
yeah for since way back, and it's just that
Yeah.
the governments, I guess, are not able to catch up and
Yeah.
update their regulations. So
And if we don't get regulation, that is the thing that I am the most scared of. Because like we said, AI is what it is. It's been around. It's not gonna go away. But if we're not honest with the people, like if you can't be transparent about the use of AI, because there are amazing uses. I've seen people who, the glasses with the meta glasses, which I don't like meta and the surveillance and all that, but I've seen people who are blind using meta glasses, smart glasses to basically narrate the world in front of them and it brings them like a whole new life and I think that that is wonderful. But if you're using AI generators to write your book,
yeah.
you know
And also, yeah, just to add to that, the technology in the like medical field, for example, hearing aids have had AI for a while, and it's like just imagine if it's not something that has been applied in, disabilities and things like that, and all the more like, cancer
Yeah,
research, detecting. So there
people
are,
don't understand. Like,
yeah, there are,
come on.
yeah, it's not just about artistry or creation online, but it's
Mhm.
more of really just making sure that it's towards our benefit, and not a step
I
back in progress.
I don't know if you saw the lawsuit with Anthropic, which they are the Claude, that's their AI, that's their
Hmm.
LLM. But there was a lawsuit against them for copyright or IP infringement, I believe. Um, but I do know there was a lawsuit, and basically they had um, in the paperwork, it had laid out that Anthropic actually went and purchased all of these books and then
Oh,
trained their models on them. And so they ended up, I believe, they didn't, that they won that because it's not. The judges ruled that it's not a case of like IP infringement or anything because a normal human could go out and buy a book and then write something similar. So like AI shouldn't have those kinds of restrictions. And I think that's absolute insanity. But yeah, if you want to read more, go read more.
oh my. Even
um,
on, I think there was news. I'm not sure how. See how messed up it can be. You're not sure if it's verified information or if it's real news. But I read Meta bought. I mean, Zuckerberg, Mark Zuckerberg,
mhm.
bought like millions of books to for his own AI to learn from.
That would make sense. Because I know the name I saw in the lawsuit was Anthropic and Claude. So, but I would not put that past Meta for that to be like another lawsuit that I
Yeah.
haven't seen yet. But it's like, how would you ever think that that was okay? I don't.
Yeah, and people can twist these things into like, oh, it's okay, it's completely valid. Everyone's
And
doing
I
it.
Oh my, listen,
Yeah.
don't get me started on the tech
Mm.
bros and they're like they have this really weird like way that they view the world. And it's basically I can do something absolutely terrible and it doesn't matter who it affects as long as in the long run it's good for the greater good. And that's like the headspace they go into with almost everything that they do. And I do feel very confident saying like tech bros in general and generalizing in
Mm.
this sense because I have not found one that like disagrees.
Mm.
But to me it's like I have so much emotion in my little body over here. Like I can't imagine hurting one person. That if you're presenting me with a like a oh, we're gonna hurt all of these creators to do something that's gonna might be good later on, it's like I just don't understand the road.
Me neither. And I mean, that's a big topic. Obviously, we could go on and on about
Oh
AI.
yeah, we could go for hours.
We'll spare those who were been listening or
Sorry
watching this
guys.
one. But yeah, just to close off, because obviously this has been very like the scope of our conversation has gone from
Yeah.
very personal to broad. But yeah, any advice for people who are still contemplating of doing this for real, or maybe part-time, full-time writing, content
Okay.
creation? So yeah, any word of
I think
advice?
I think my advice would be to A, just do it. I like Nike, just do it. It doesn't matter. Nobody's asking you for a good first draft. Nobody's asking you for a perfectly polished publication. Nobody, especially with all the AI going on, actually nobody really wants that anymore. I found that a lot of people actually do enjoy the human mess.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead and do it. Write the first draft, post it, make your account, whatever stage you're in, and then go ahead, just prune your community down. I think that you will understand this especially, but the fiction community in Substack is so supportive and so wholesome and so like easy to slide into. Obviously, there are outliers, but the block and the mute buttons are free.
Yes,
So
very magical
the
features.
yeah, that genuinely when after you just hit post and then you go to the notes and I really like I'm a shy person. I'm anti-social. I have a genuine fear of social interaction, but commenting just one thoughtful comment on someone else's piece, not like a thanks for posting or good work, but a thoughtful comment usually that's all it takes. And then people are like, oh, wow, this person actually took the time to read. I'm going to go give them a follow and things like that. And it just kind of builds. So yeah, just do it.
Yeah, genuine connections. And
Yeah,
yeah, I think it's so powerful and it's so underrated these days. Like it's all about
absolutely.
numbers. No, it's not. If even if you have a small pool,
Exactly.
as long as they are super supportive, I think you'll go a
Let
long
me
way.
tell you, like
Yeah.
I've never been huge about the numbers because, like I said, social anxiety. But
Mm-hmm.
um, I have the subscribers that I have now are genuinely some of my favorite people on this earth.
For real.
They are so kind and they don't hold back on the criticism, which I love. They are I treat them like real people and they treat me like a real person. And that's something you just don't really get that much of on the internet anymore.
Correct.
So yeah, just do it and the right people will find you.